we're back for another episode of The Flipside, and I've got Chad and Jen Beasly with me. Guys, thank y'all so much for being here.
Yeah, this is great.
We've never done a transaction together. Y'all are in real estate, but
Actually, you and I did one
we
a
have.
few years ago,
Oh my
but I
gosh.
didn't come to closing. So
Okay. Yeah.
I forget what happened. I think I was out of town or something.
Yeah,
I can't
we're
remember.
always moving. We don't know each other that well, but
Right.
I've always looked up to y'all from the sense of an
That means
all-encompassing.
we're old.
What? Just not.
That's okay. We own it.
I admire how y'all have structured not just your business but your life, and how you,
Thank you.
Work together, which I think is incredible. But also, y'all are, especially with the article that came out in the Real Producer magazine, just around your charity and just everything y'all do and how you structure your life. I really wanted to get to know y'all and just learn more about how you've done that, because I think there is a very defined line of someone who succeeds in real estate but not in the other aspects of their life.
Right.
And at least from the outside looking in, it sounds like, or it looks like, y'all
We fake it.
y'all kill it on all aspects, and I love it. So,
Make me a little teary this morning. Aw.
well, I want to hear about y'all's story, but first, just give me a rundown of who are y'all?
We go way back.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. We've been hanging out for 35 years now.
Yeah, we met when I was 15.
Okay.
I did not make cheerleader in 10th grade, which was devastating, but I always said, God has something different planned. And so he did in a big way. I decided, well, if I'm not going to be all that time in, with cheerleading, I'm going to go get a job. Because, if I want, I didn't come from a family that was, able to provide everything for me. So if I want a car, I better go get a job. So I applied at the cookie company at University Mall in Tuscaloosa when I was 15. And
The assistant manager there was really cool.
Yeah? Is that you?
Yeah.
so, yes, it was his senior year and my sophomore year. We didn't go to the same high school, so we would have never met had I not made cheerleader. So, yeah, our first date was his senior prom.
Really?
Yeah.
That's quite a first
And
date.
that's sort of the beginning of the history of us working together.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah.
worked together for, a couple of years, I guess, there. And then fast forward, on into college and everything, we both waited tables, at a restaurant in Tuscaloosa and worked together there. And, so it just kind of always worked. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I know not everybody can do that, but we have, and not only that, so we waited tables to put ourselves through school, and then I graduated in education, and I was a teacher for 3 years, and he was financial planner. When we bought our first house, that's when he got the bug to be in real estate, but
Way back in 1997.
but then after I had children, I stayed at home, so I was a stay-at-home mom, and you know how real estate works. I mean, more so now than even back then, but you're home a lot, and so you're together a lot, and so it was just when I got my license 5 years ago, and it was just a natural transition. Our daughter was a senior in high school, and I was doing behind the scenes, not licensed stuff, and I was like, this is silly. We're about to be empty nesters, and so now it's taken a little while to find our lanes and make what was his year, 26 years now
It's 26 now.
in the business. So it was his, and he did
I
it,
guess you
grew
jumped
it.
in. I guess it was a little over 21 when you started with me. So
Yeah.
she jumped in, and there was a little bit of, her having to find that feeling of that she belonged, and all that sort of stuff. So there was a little bit of growing pains in there of her just gaining the confidence that she knew more than she thought she did because she had been around it for so long.
But I definitely had a crutch
Yeah.
of not having to learn everything
But
right away.
the cool thing is that we've found our lanes, like she's talking about. I mean, she does a lot of the marketing, social media side of things and everything, and she's great in helping with relationship building with our clients and things like that. But transactionally, I still am the main person handling all of that stuff because there's really no reason for us to duplicate efforts,
Right.
So. It's
And that
worked
took
out really
a little
well.
while. Yeah, took
Yeah.
a little while to learn, and I think we've got a really good groove now after 5 years. And that's kind of a little bit of our story. We've always worked together really well.
Yeah.
Our marriage is, it is what you see, and I'm not ashamed. I mean, we have an amazing marriage, and we fight very, very little. And I'm not lying. We're very blessed, and I'm very, very thankful for that job I got when I was 15, because it's been an incredible long time together.
I love that. I see such a common theme of people successful in our business, but a lot of businesses, the work ethic starts so early, right? And really doesn't quit through there. So you see people in this business that absolutely kill it, that have worked literally since 15 or 13, and either out of necessity or just out of, I just need something to do, right?
Yeah.
And that's such a common trend I see, and I think that speaks volume to someone who, especially out of necessity, is just like, this is just how we are.
Well, and that's, I've never known not working hard. I mean, I grew up with, that was the only option, I mean, my parents, just, they didn't make a lot of money. The biggest house we ever lived in growing up was like 1,700 square feet. Yeah. And, we grew up in Tuscaloosa, both of us did. And my mom and my stepdad both worked at Bryce Hospital. My grandfather, who was really a big part of my life, I mean, that's where I learned work ethic from. I mean, that man, he worked for the railroad for 35 years, and he would either work the evening shift 3 to 11, or he would work the midnight 11 to 7 shift overnight. And then he would go, and he grew up, his dad was a carpenter, and that's what he did. And so the whole time he was working for the railroad, he'd get off at the railroad. If he got off at 7 in the morning, he was on a job site at 7:30, framing houses or something until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, then go home, go to sleep, and then go do it again.
Wow.
I mean, talk about work ethic. And that's how, they came from that Depression era, growing up, and so that was just what you did, And so I saw that growing up and knew that, if you want stuff, you got to go work for stuff. And so the only way I was going to get a car when I turned 16, like Jen said, she was the same way. Is I was going to have to go get a job and get out there and work for it, you know. And so it's just never been an option for me to not work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing is, though, God definitely has blessed our business. And Chad's career has been incredible. And yes, probably if you want stuff, you got to work hard. But the cool thing is, it has morphed over the years as our relationship has grown, our relationship with God has grown, that it's really not about the stuff anymore. Like, we grew up a little bit. It's about the people. And that's, we learned real fast, and you're in the business, so we all have those times where that person that was your long-term client doesn't use you. That friend at church that you've been talking to forever buys from someone else. And so even before I had anything to do with real estate, I would see those periods and times in his business that I would just have to go, God gives us everything we're supposed to have and nothing that we don't. And this business is not just about the transaction. It's about who God has for us to get in the flow of their lives and do something more. Yes, we all have to have a paycheck and we have to survive. But in this business, when we set our minds that way, it was like a switch of it's not, this business will eat you alive and it will beat you down if it's just about the next transaction. And, it's not. So no, we've just, I would say, it took a little while, but we really switched our mindset of how can we serve. And so that's...
Well, and that's something that is an ongoing process, right? The first time that God sort of smacked me upside the back of the head with that, I think 2016 was like nothing I ever imagined. The market had crashed, and we went through that whole 2008 through 2012 period, and then it was kind of a build back, and then 2016, it was like, what is happening? I ended up doing 89 transactions that year by myself. No transaction coordinator. She wasn't licensed yet. I did 20 transaction sides in the month of May that year, and then followed that up with like 13 in June. So you know,
That's a lot. That is a lot.
I almost lost him.
Almost
was a widow.
I don't, I've never had an anxiety attack, so I don't
was
struggle with that. I don't know exactly what that is, but there were times where I'm out showing houses or something, and I'm just like, oh my God, I can't be here. I've got to deal with all this stuff for these closings,
Yeah.
and just the pressure, and I'm sending emails at 2 a.m. and all that sort of stuff. But I remember after that year, kind of, like she said, if it's all about transactions, it just burns you out. And so I remember having a conversation with God and just going, hey, I want to change the focus of this thing. It's not really about, how many transactions can I do and all of that. I really want this to be about how can I be used in the lives of these families that God puts me in front of to make an impact on their families through what I do for a living that brings glory to Him, through all of it. And when you switch that and that becomes your focus, then it's really not even work anymore.
Yeah.
And it's cool. But like I said, it's a continual kind of having to refocus yourself on that, because it's a day by day thing.
We are human, and we have all the emotions and all the things
Right.
that come with its job. And sometimes he'll have to tell me, "Hey, remember," and then I have to tell him, "Hey, remember." But
it's not just a one decision and then
Yeah.
it's said. It's a constant reminder. So so always a constant reminder to stay in that service mindset. So one thing that I've been asked, and I'm curious if y'all have been asked this before, and you've kind of answered the question, but when is enough enough, right? Because in this business, it can be pretty profitable. Y'all are super successful. Have y'all faced that question, and how have you answered it?
it's always easy to find somewhere
I
else to
know.
spend
Listen,
the money.
I've made the analogy a few times. It seems like our financial lives, is like, okay, you've got this bubble that is, but that is your income or whatever, and there's like this little hole in it, and you stick this little straw in, and it's like that great stuff expanding foam, that's your expenses, and somehow it expands to fill whatever the income part is, if you're not careful anyway. And so that's, I don't know. I mean, I really have never thought about that because, I mean, I'm 52. I feel like I got a lot of runway left, and I just love what I do. So it's not. I mean, at some point I would like to, not feel like I have to hit X number, and all that sort of stuff. But right now, I mean, it's just not even really on my radar of dialing it back or anything because I really do love it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably in the past 5 years have realized, okay, where do we want to allocate our funds?
Right.
So we had never really traveled up until a few years ago. Our
5 or 6
son
years
kind of
ago.
pushed us out of the box when he graduated. He's a climber, or was then. He still does a little bit, but that was his senior trip.
That's cool.
We went to Yosemite so that he could climb
Oh, wow.
outdoors in Yosemite. And it's embarrassing, but I'm not sure we had been out of the Southeast. I mean, I think I've been to New York and Washington, D.C., but that was it.
Before then, Texas was the furthest west I had
wow.
been.
Yeah. So I would say over the past 5 years or so, we've been intentional about taking a break and seeing some of this great country that we live in. And so just priorities. Things don't matter as much to us, but time, memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially now our kids are older. I mean, they're Parker's married and lives in Nashville, and he travels a lot. And then Hallie, our daughter, is 21, and now that they're grown, we look for ways that we can do things together that's more experiential kind of things. Instead of we've kind of started a tradition instead of just giving each other gifts that nobody really needs or wants. Let's do something. So we tried to start.
We just
doing
got back
that
from the Tetons in Yellowstone.
Okay,
That was our
yeah.
family trip this time. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, I think you touched on it before I asked the question. Really, you answered it in the sense of changing your focus, especially since 2016. Of it's not about working to generate money, but it's more so anything that comes in just allows us to serve and allows us to kind of serve God's plan further.
Right.
And I love that because I I agree with that. And that was something I struggled with before I realized, like, no, money coming in is just a vehicle that allows me to do what I choose to do with it. And so as long as I'm choosing something that serves, then I think there's never enough, right? Because there's
Yeah.
always a need.
Right.
Yeah.
So
There's always an opportunity to help somebody or some organization somewhere or whatever. And you're right. Money is just a tool.
Right.
And it's just, how are you going to swing that hammer?
right, right, yeah.
And I mean, Chad and I we always gave back. And, we did it in the very Southern Baptist traditional way for a long time where 10%, goes to the church. And I don't remember when we kind of switched that mindset. I mean, we gave to our church, but we started just with our business, you get paid. You don't have a set salary. You never know how much or whatever. We just started just tithing off the top of each commission 10%, and we just pushed it over into an account. And then just kind of, okay, what doors was God going to open that he used that transaction to fulfill something that he wanted done. And so it might be someone that we knew that was adopting, or it might be someone who was going through an illness, and it may or may not be tax deductible.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, we sort of looked at it and it was like, God doesn't, he doesn't necessarily lead us to only give in instances where there's a charitable organization set up where we can get a tax deduction. That's not really what the giving's about. It's a nice little side benefit when you can get a tax deduction, but if there's a need that needs to be fulfilled and there's not a tax deduction involved, well, that's, that's okay.
Doesn't mean not to do it.
Right.
And that's kind of where, like you talked about the Real Producers article on what we were doing. So we've been doing that like our whole career, but we thought, well, I'll say it came from this. So we gave to Hargis Christian Camp, and they have been doing big campaigns and promotions. It's the coolest story. If you've never looked into what they've done, talk about watching God move. And we gave, and he would do promotions on social media, like with a big check if somebody donated.
He'd be
whatever.
an Aaron, the guy that that's
And it was,
doing the camp.
so amazing and wonderful. But it's been a few years ago. We went to Aaron and like, okay, God, we feel like this is what we need to give, and we don't want recognition. We don't want.
Yeah, he had
this
been
isn't
doing
about
it
our
on
business.
social media with the big check, out in front of
We don't
people
want
and
the check.
everything, which is cool. I was like, it's not really about recognition for us. We feel led to give to this, and he kind of looked at me. He was like, "Look, I get that, and that's admirable." He said, "What you don't understand is when I can promote that somebody like you and Jen, who is known in the community and trusted, is giving to this, it brings credibility to what we're doing. It brings awareness to what we're doing." And so I was like, never really thought about it that way.
Yeah. So we started Give Back with Chad and Jen in 2023 in our real estate business. And so we had given to Hargis. We had given to King's Home, which is a children's home in Chelsea. We had given to On River Time, really cool organization that actually partners with Big Oak Ranch, Palmer Home in Mississippi, and they provide fly fishing retreats in the summer for these children that are there, and they are taken out and given an opportunity to heal and experience God out in his creation. And so we've done a lot with that organization, and then Big Oak Ranch. And we were like, why are we keeping this a secret? After what we heard Aaron say, we're gonna give.
Right.
Let's let our clients get in on it.
Yeah,
So
let's shine a light on these organizations, and our client. It's been fun because our clients get excited about it because we with every transaction, we have this thing we send to them going, hey, it's time, and they get to pick from which charity they want to give to, and so they get excited about
cool.
that.
Yeah, that's insane.
Sometimes they get conflicted because they can't pick.
but it's just brought exposure to organizations that other people might not know are even there, and is an opportunity for our clients to kind of get on it's not just about selling a house. This is an opportunity, and it's been so fun. And we never know. We send the little email or text, hey, it's closing day. Don't forget to look at which organization. And we never know what they're going to pick. And it's just been kind of cool to see how God has just kind of like evenly distributed it. It's
Yeah.
not up to us. So it's been fun.
That's awesome. Was there anything that led up to targeting those specific organizations? Did you have any ties to them, or?
I mean,
We've
other than,
supported
yeah, I
them.
mean, it's
And we
things
just-
that we've supported, and
We focused on children.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
I was a kindergarten teacher, taught for 6 years.
Yeah.
3 on, 11 off, 3 on, you
Yeah.
know, because we all know what happened in '08.
Yep.
Jen went back to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
In
that passion didn't
2010.
die, right? Yeah.
And so my heart is very much in tune. I saw a lot as a teacher. Like nobody even realizes as a kindergarten teacher what I saw kids going through.
even you know, she was teaching in an affluent school, and
Yeah.
the things that she would see, and you know, the things that these kids go through sometimes is, you know, it's big stuff.
Yeah, and we did intentionally pick organizations that put God in the middle of it, and we
and that
did
was the
kind of
thing,
harness the where the money goes. Like,
Right. You
we
know,
made
we-
an exception one time to something that was very personal to a client, but other than that, we really wanted the money to
Well,
stay where we knew
wanted
God
it to,
was first.
we wanted it, you know, our hearts were for it to focus on helping children, and it be organizations that sort of align with our biblical worldview.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't want to just open it up to just give to any organization. So that's why we kind of made a list and
Yeah,
did it that
we were
way.
able to kind of
I
focus.
love that. Well, when we finish up, I want to get all that information from you so we can put it in the
Oh,
show
yay.
notes
Sure.
and have
That'd
it
be awesome.
attached
Yeah.
if someone feels called or attached to
Very
put
cool.
towards that. I want to put
Okay.
it in there. I want to switch back gears a little bit to y'all's business specifically,
Okay.
and how the dynamics work from a personality standpoint, day to day. Like, give me the nitty gritty day to day operations. Like, are one of you controlling one side of the business and the other handles the other, or is it even split? How are y'all?
Good
set up?
Chaos.
cop, bad
It's
cop.
just chaos. No, a little easier to talk about now. We're trying to grow up and actually run it like a business.
Yeah.
We've heard about these things called business plans and goals.
Well, and so the funny thing is, I have run my whole life from this thing called time blocking.
Yeah.
You know, it's not my personality, you know. I'm just I don't know. I mean, it turns into working all the time, but don't tell me I have to do this task from this time to this
Right,
time.
yeah.
That's why I don't work in the corporate world anymore, you know.
So no one tells me.
But that's sort of where we've gone to, is kind of trying to, okay, we have certain things that we're trying to accomplish. The only way we're going to get this done is if we put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
And so we've started trying to do more of that. As far as division of roles and all that, like we talked about earlier, Jen's really heavily into the marketing, the social media stuff for us.
Accounting.
Yeah, she handles all
Get
the
the boo.
the
But
fun
I give him the
bookkeeping
inspections.
stuff. And I handle most of the transactional stuff. I mean,
Okay.
so if there's a listing appointment, we're both there, and we're both building that relationship. And you know, I joked about, you know, good cop, bad cop. You know,
No, it's true.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, no, we really can't price it there, and you know, it smells like dog in here,
Yeah.
and you know, things like that. And she's like, oh, but I bet your grandchildren love this room, and you know, stuff like
That's
that.
so
you
important
know.
too. 'Cause
It
yeah,
is.
Yeah.
And he's not always the bad cop. Sometimes, you know, I've learned to get in that role a little bit of, you know, okay, that we have to tuck away, you know, all your
Knickknacks.
knickknacks. And I think one of the major benefits of us doing that piece together, of going on a listing appointment together, is it opens up, because we actually, believe it or not, we get a lot of calls from people we don't know, just based off of our presence in the Chelsea and North Shelby County market. I mean, Chad's been, before I ever came on board, because of the crash and because he never went away, we kind of woke up one day when I got on board looking at marketing and helping before I ever was licensed, and we realized, you are the top selling agent in Chelsea. We need to market that.
Yeah.
So we bought a billboard, told everybody about it,
Yeah.
and then that's where our targeted marketing, we stopped paying realtor.com,
Yeah,
we
that was-
stopped paying Zillow.
That was a big shift, you know, in mindset, and our marketing was kind of that, hey, if we're spending money on our, building our business, it makes more sense for us to be targeting sellers and trying to get more listings than why are we spending money over here buying buyer leads, And so that's where that kind of came out of, is in realizing that at that point, I think that was 2012, that I had sold more than anybody else in Chelsea, and then that's kind of continued, and now, we can easily say that we've sold more in Chelsea, in the history of Chelsea, than any other realtor.
Which, to be fair, it's
like
not really old.
By like double or something.
Well,
I mean,
and it helps that since 2012, it's like tripled in size, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
you having that namesake before that happened, I mean, that's incredible.
Well, we moved there in 2006 when the market really kind of started going the wrong way a little bit. But like she said, I mean, even through the downturn and everything, I did everything I could to stay visible. And so I went from the worst of it in 2010 and 11 to 2012 was a record year because I stuck around. So when people started buying again, it was just like, bam, and it paid off quick.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
So since then, have y'all bought leads, or have you just stuck with that model? And
We just
grown
kind of stuck with that model of staying very visible in the community. We do a lot of direct mail, and like Jen said, we've got a couple of billboards down there. And then otherwise, it's just, repeat and referral business from our clients. And then, like she said, people calling us who, in a lot of cases, feel like they know us already just because of our community presence and, things like that.
Signs in the yard.
I always ask people how, if they weren't referred or something or didn't know me already, I'm like, how did you find us? And they're like, well, and there's never any one thing. It's, well, we get your postcard and we see your billboard every day and we see your signs in people's yards. And so they feel like they're seeing us everywhere.
I feel like they know you, right?
Yeah. But what I was saying was, so strangely enough, our business has kind of morphed into, we do a lot of business with people we don't have relationships with prior. So when we go on those listing appointments, the chemistry of what we have, and we just naturally, it'll be one or the other. Like we got a listing one time where it was a daughter who was helping her father sell his house, and I'm like keyed in on her, and we've kind of made a connection, and that it's all business. Like it's all about the house. What do I need to do? The business side of it.
It was funny because the daughter was sort of like, she really, her intention was to not bother Dad. He's just going to sit there in the chair. I'm going to handle all of this. And I was like, well, I'm not going to just not acknowledge this man.
Right.
And I see like his hard hat from Alabama Power sitting over there and a few other little things. And so I start talking to him about, his career and what he did and all that sort of. He reminded me a lot of my grandfather, and so I started talking to him, and we just kind of hit it off. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it provides us a unique opportunity doing it together to build the relationship.
Yeah.
With people we've never met before.
Well, we found out later on that particular one, we didn't realize it, that she was talking to 2 or 3 different agents, and then she finally called us back, and she was like, Dad picked y'all. When Dad didn't even really have a say in the matter in the beginning. So,
but it's another level. I mean, very few clients do we go through a transaction where it's just a transaction.
Yeah.
We found that our business has kind of grown in an area that we didn't see coming. I'm going to go ahead and copyright it.
Okay.
Right now. It's called Boomers and Beyond. We really, that is just an avenue that God has busted wide open
the past
for
2 or
us.
3 years, the number of families that we've helped of, I would say 65, 70 and up, a lot of 80-plus-year-olds, just a lot of that part of the population, that segment of our population that's, maybe they're moving to get closer to the grandkids, or maybe it's time to go to assisted living, or they're moving in with the kids. That's the case with the gentleman Jen talked about a few minutes ago, is the daughter had built out an apartment in her basement for Dad to come live there. And so just that's really been something that we just didn't see coming, that's sort of grown organically, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, we just love those folks.
We had a sweet client who called us off our postcard. She actually had someone in the business a mother-in-law of her son or something, I don't know. And she called us. She was very kind of arm's length at the listing appointment. And, we just realized instantly, we don't even really need to talk about the house. No, that's not why we're here.
Yeah.
Like, we want to listen. She wasn't ready yet. Like, there's just this emotional thing that at certain points in people's lives when they're having to come to terms with, I can no longer live independently in my home. And so that listing appointment just turned into listening to her and going, hey, we're here when you're ready. And if we can help, if you need assistance with finding somebody to come help you move furniture to be donated, or if you need help with packing, or if you need, wow, I mean, it's been the biggest blessing.
Yeah.
And they're not all like that. Like sometimes they're, hey, we're ready to go move to the beach.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's all over the board, from super happy to super sad. We've walked through with one of our favorite clients who was needing to move because his wife needed to go into an assisted living situation, and he was ready to move, sell their family home for forever.
Yeah, they've been there for 30 years.
And we got it listed, and we got it under contract, and his wife passed away before. And he just came to us and he said, is there any way I can get out of this? I can't let go of the house right now. And it was great. We knew the person that had made the offer, and they were like, absolutely, no problem, because it was an investment.
She was going to flip it.
Yeah, she was going to flip it.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't, but probably 2 months later, he was in a position where he no longer needed to live by himself in a home with stairs and all the things. And I've never walked through a home selling process with, number one of the most incredible, encouraging, positive
With all he had been through.
man
always
I've ever
smiling,
met. Like, he
full of
ministered to
joy.
us.
Yeah, so cool.
But it was just so obvious that the timing of everything and how God put us in the flow of his life. And he was somebody that we knew before that, but there's no greater reward than having somebody look at you in one of the most challenging and difficult periods of their life and saying that we made it better.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
And I think that just alludes to anyone can go take the test and be a realtor, but it does not set you up for all that you have to be in this business. Right. From a mover and packer to sometimes a counselor to, and
God,
it's
the things I have done.
right.
Hanging a garage door opener in the middle of the night before closing the next day so that the FHA appraiser will come back and clear it.
Yeah. It's almost to our own detriment that we know how to fix some things sometimes. It's like, I don't know how to do that. So, but yeah, it's interesting to see just where this industry takes us, because it can go so many different directions. That's something you're just not going to learn from a test or from books or whatever it is. So
that's why I tell new agents that are getting into it. I'm like, look, just make the 70 on the test. Don't get hung up on anything, because most of the stuff in there you're never going to see again. And if you make 70 or if you make 95, it's not going to be indicative of how good you're going to be at doing this business.
Any broker will still have you.
Right.
There's no password.
Yeah.
I love that. So going back, so it sounds like y'all share kind of responsibilities in the business to an extent, and y'all do that very well. How do you, if you do, turn it off?
We have.
I have a mental breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, it usually starts with Jen going, "I can't do this anymore."
I quit.
Done.
No,
I mean, we try to. It's hard. Sometimes. In this business, a lot of times the tail wags the dog, and so you have to be intentional. With us. One thing that we try to do, we built a pool, and we've got a great view out the back of our house. And so sometimes it's as simple as, hey, let's leave our phones on the kitchen counter. Let's go down there and watch the sunset and just check out, for a little bit. Sometimes it's, hey, let's take the day and tune out the world and go to Cheehaw, or Oak Mountain and go hiking or something,
I'm going to say that's and just in full disclosure, that's our biggest flaw.
It is. It's a
It is,
struggle.
especially since we both do it.
Yeah.
We can physically stop, but I'm not sure mentally.
That's the hard part, is the
I
wheels are
dreamed
always
about it
turning.
last night.
Yeah. And so that's the tough part, is
Yeah.
to get your head in a spot to where you can turn off the noise and all the things that you're thinking about, whether it's, a client need, or it's, marketing stuff you need to be doing. I mean, we're business owners, right? I mean, that's what a lot of realtors don't understand and don't have that mindset of, you're running a business. It's not a job.
Yeah.
And so you're the CEO and the janitor, and it never stops. And so trying to find a way to turn your brain off and shift to, I got to check out for a minute, is a challenge.
Sometimes we'll go to dinner and we're like, not one word.
Yeah.
Not one word. And then you're just sitting there going, well, shoot, what
all
are we
we
going to
talk
talk about?
Well, and listen, we talked about her getting her license for years and years. And in the beginning, we talked about her doing it just almost as like disability insurance. If something
Yeah.
happened to me and I got, laid up in the bed, I can work the phones and she can go show houses
Like,
or whatever.
we couldn't take advantage of the full life insurance policy, because
Right.
it just
Right.
didn't quite move on. But
But that's but my fear in doing that for so long was, I don't want to become one of those real estate couples to where we get to a point to where we have nothing in common and nothing to talk about but real estate.
Right.
And I think we balance that pretty well, but at the same time, that is still a challenge to kind of check out and go, okay, we're going to go back to Chad and Jen are going on a date. We're not working right now,
But it's also where, for my 50th birthday, this past spring, well,
You're 50?
it happened. We went on a trip on the Rocky Mountaineer, which is a train that runs from Moab to Denver. And the
wow.
most
That was so cool.
glorious thing, they feed you this fine dining on this bougie train. And the most glorious thing was you would look at your phone and it had SOS. Like nothing
cool.
could come through.
Yeah.
Well,
There
it
no
was. It was
signal.
cool because, there was at one point we got, so that train, the like Amtrak and all those take priority. So if one of those trains is coming through, they have to stop and let that train go by. And they may have to stop for a while waiting on it because it's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
So we stopped just somewhere in the mountains in Colorado waiting for another train to come by for probably an hour and a half, and had absolutely no signal. And it was just like, this is awesome. I mean, because
It really was.
we have no, there's no picking up your phone and scrolling,
Right,
or checking them for a text message, or, feeling like you need to deal with something or whatever. We could just, and it started snowing while we were up there. It was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
And this was in April. So, it's just we try to find ways that we can, whether it's just a little weekend getaway or whatever, but just try to check out for a little bit when we can.
Yeah.
And I will say, and I know this podcast and it's not about this, but we've shifted brokerages in the past 4 years. And the brokerage we're at now has given us an opportunity to do things a little bit different. And we don't have a team, like we're it. It's just Chad and Jen. But we have supported and helped agents in the business, and we've grown a family. So it's not a team, but we have a family. So when we are gone, we have people that we know will help pick up the slack, maybe
And then
do
when
a
they're
showing,
gone, we help them.
whatever. And then when they're gone, we help them. So I would say that's been one of the best transitions that we've made, in that the model's a little bit different. And so we're putting some things in place so that, really and truly, I know it sounds like we do work a lot at a high level, but I have in my mind like a 5-year goal. I would love in 5 years to be able to start pulling back, and I don't know if that's God's plan, but that's kind of my plan of putting some things in place so that at 55 we're still young enough to go on those trips and enjoy the things and do the business that we want to do, but have a family around us that we can refer stuff to. And, we're nowhere near ready to stop doing what we're doing. But I'm excited about seeing a possibility of it kind of becoming a part of our life and not all of our life.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to jump back, and this question's for both of you, from a dad standpoint and excuse me, and a mom standpoint. So this is a selfish question too. So we've got a almost 2.5-year-old and one on the way.
Oh,
And so
congratulations.
we're on the very front end of it.
Yeah.
So before you got your license and you were just full-time
Yeah.
realtor, talk to me about balance of
Okay.
always running your business yourself, being able to turn it off and be present for your kids. What did that look like? And then after you answer that, flip to you, and then what did that look like from your side as well, being able to say, I know he's providing and to an extent everything he's doing is necessary, but like talk to me about that balance.
Okay. So looking back, I mean, I always feel like, you're always your own worst critic, right? And I look back a lot of times and go, dang, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. But I will say overall, I feel like I did a pretty good job of juggling that and being present. That was always important to me, above and beyond everything else. One, I wanted my kids to see me and experience me loving the heck out of their mom in front of them. And then I wanted to be there for my kids, and I didn't want to be that absentee dad. And yeah, I was working and I was running off, and there were times where I'm, sliding in sideways to the ballpark to a baseball game, or I'm sitting at the dance recital going, oh my God, is this thing ever going to end? I've got these people waiting on me, and stuff like that. But honestly, I can't think of anything that I missed.
And to be fair, he didn't think that when our daughter was on stage, but those things
Right,
last
right.
Oh, yeah.
all
Well,
day long.
you'll learn.
Oh,
Do
yes,
you have a
go
little
ahead.
girl?
3 minutes.
Okay, so yeah, those dance recitals, I mean, it's all day waiting for your daughter to get up there for 30 seconds.
3 minutes.
It's a
Maybe a
glorious 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But it's just like, oh my God, somebody shoot me. But I was, in a lot of cases, I was the only dad at the field trips, for school
Yeah.
and stuff. And I went to Washington with Parker, and when he was in 6th grade, and so I tried to be intentional about making sure that I was there, for those kind of things, and that my kids never felt like that they were, second to my job or something like that. So that was real important to me, and I feel like I did a pretty good job about it. Like I said, I'm always beating myself up and going, man, I wish I had taken more time to do this or that, or.
Yeah. Did you ever get any pushback, or how did clients handle that of saying, I can imagine very few. But
I can tell the story. No, you go ahead.
So
That's specific.
this was
It hurts a little.
very, very rarely.
Yeah.
I found that, one, most people understand, and listen, a lot of times it's as simple as going, hey, I can do it on this, at this time or this time, or whatever, and they don't have to know why.
Yeah.
It's just, or I already have an appointment scheduled at this time, I can do it at this time. They don't have to know that you told your kid you were going to throw the ball in the backyard with them.
That's the appointment.
That's right.
the appointment.
No, and I
Yeah.
think that is a huge thing for
Yeah.
agents to have of, I've already booked an appointment.
Right.
Because everybody will respect that. Most people would respect of, I've got this family time, but for the most part, I think that's a key word for agents to use.
But I had a listing a few years back, and these people were very, this guy, he was very just type A, high expectations, wanted, I did more open houses for this dude than I've ever done for any one human. And then there was one, it was a Sunday, there had been a showing, and we got some feedback that the agent noticed a gas smell. And so the guy calls me at like 9 o'clock at night, and he's like, I need you to go over there. And I'm like, man, I can't go over there right now. I'm in the middle of this or that. I can't, I had not done an open house that day, rewinding a little bit, talking about the kids. Hallie, our daughter, who's a musician, you know, that she was in this rock band league thing, and they had a performance that day, and so I was like, I can't do it. And it was something that happened like once a month or something that they were doing those, and so I was like, I can't do an open house that day or whatever. So that night, you know, that thing with the gas smell happens. I was like, look, I can't get over there right now, but even if I could, you know, I'm not equipped to do anything about it. You really need to call the gas company.
Yeah.
And I mean, he just gets all upset with me, and you know, you're my realtor. You need to be over there. I'm like, look, what am I going to do? Call one of your neighbors. Your neighbor's right there has got a key. I mean, they can do as much as I can, or you know. Anyway, he starts going into me of, I didn't know I needed to check with you on your daughter's, I forget what he said even, volleyball schedule or something like that. I'm like, well, one, it's not volleyball, and two, I was like, listen, I forget exactly how I said it, but something to the effect of, I think you're under the illusion that I'm ever going to put you ahead of my family.
Oh, I love that.
And I said, this just isn't working out. Yeah. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, your expectations and the way I run my life and my business are not aligning. I'm coming to get my sign tomorrow. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I mean, I'm done, you know? And that's
Well, that was just
there's
one.
two
I mean,
instances in my entire career where I fired a client, and that was.
I was actually thinking about the other one.
Well, I think that's so important about having those priorities set.
Both of them revolved around the kids. Yeah.
And just saying you're not going to dictate how.
The
I run it.
paycheck's not.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
In the
it's
end,
not worth being berated and belittled by somebody, or putting my family second. You know, to please somebody that. I mean, look, I'm going to work, and I'm going to work hard for you, but when you start. We're just not going to go there.
Yeah, we're going to do it. You hired me for my professionalism and how I run my business.
Yeah.
I can tell me how to run. I heard not too long ago someone say, 15 years from now, that client's not going to remember if you showed up or not for the gas, but your kid's going to remember if you showed up for it. And so hearing that, I'm like, again, being on the front end of this, trying to just get all the advice I can from just great people like you saying.
It's about boundaries, man. And it's hard to set those sometimes, but they're necessary.
Yep, that's great. And so I didn't get to hear your side, kind of jumping back a little bit to the balance and
of putting up with me running around all over the place in the early days.
Yeah, I mean, look, he started back in the day where there was no, like, he had to print and deliver and get things signed in person, and so he was gone a lot in those early days. There was no as soon as electronic signatures were a thing, he was on it. He was always the cutting edge, but there was a lot. I mean, he'd have to go and be gone a lot. And I was at home with Parker, Parker was 2.5 when Hallie was born. And so, I mean, there was a period of time where I was like, whoa, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 would be really great.
Yeah.
But had that been the case, he wouldn't have been a dad that got to go on field trips and got to never miss. He helped me with class parties, and we, classroom sponsorships, and he missed nothing. Yeah. He worked like crazy, and there were times when, the kids maybe wouldn't understand, why dad was gone all day or late or, and he's working so hard so that you can go to dance lessons and so that we can go on this trip and so my role, both as his wife with our kids, as well as being a supporter and encourager in his career, was just maintaining that balance. And just like we do now, where we divide, where I'm so much better in this lane in our business and he's good in this lane in the business, with our family, we had our lanes, and always just being intentional of working together and being a united front in whatever it was. So he probably carried more guilt with the amount of hours and the level his business went to. I always was just very grateful that it was flexible, because, now there were times when I'm like, get off the phone. Yeah. Our son's up to bat.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was a blessing, that I knew 99% of the time, even if he's on the phone. Now, things like going to the beach, it drove him crazy because we joke, if we want to sell a house, let's go out of town.
Yep.
Because we always close a deal while we're out of town.
First time we ever took a week-long vacation as a family, we went to the beach for a week. I sold 8 houses
Yeah.
while we were at the beach. That doesn't happen
Right.
when I'm at
Yeah.
home.
Yep.
8 houses in 1 week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he would get really frustrated with that because he could never turn it off. I would go, hey, at least you're here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thankful your job is mobile. So I always had that probably a greater understanding of that ability with his job than he did.
It's funny, her mindset shifted a lot after the market crashed and we nearly lost everything.
Everything.
And then when it started coming
like,
back,
"Keep going,
no,
she's
go
like, go,
Why are
get
you
out,
here?
stay gone.
Yeah. Don't come back.
Just
till you
bring
sell
home the
something.
check.
Yeah.
Your mind definitely shifts when you go through tough times like
Yeah.
that.
What did those times look like?
Oh,
God, it was awful.
it was awful.
Look, we learned a lot.
We
We
did.
did. And there was a lot of good that came out of it. Look, it forced us to put down roots and stay in one house in one neighborhood for 14 years, which was
Would have
really
not
good for our
happened.
business
Yeah.
and was really good for our kids.
Yeah, I never had the mindset of living in one place. I mean, we knew we'd be in Birmingham. We lived in, first home was in Pelham, we lived in Helena, then we moved to Chelsea, all because I just found a pretty house.
Yeah.
No other reason.
Right.
And my mindset was, you're in the business, let's move every 2 to 4 years. I love a change. So if the market had not crashed, we would have never put down roots. Our kids would not have grown up in one place. We would have not built a business. We didn't think about, it'd be pretty cool to be the top selling agents in Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, that just sort of.
We actually were a little bit scared of, getting pigeonholed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the greatest thing that could have ever happened. And I would have never done that. And I always say, God said, you're staying put.
Yeah.
Because the market did crash. We were upside down in our house for a very long time and could not move, and we're just grateful to hold on to it. So we learned a lot. We grew up a lot with our business. We had never run our business like a business. When the market came back and he had the best year ever, we hired a financial advisor. We started an S Corp. Like, we did so many things wrong at the beginning, but so much good came out of it, and a great respect and understanding
Well,
of
and
God being in control of everything.
And going through all of that, I mean, it did. It when you're sitting there and the bill collectors are calling and there's no closings on the books and all that, I mean, it grows your faith,
Yeah.
tremendously. But we also, there's a couple of ways that can go with marriages. It's either going to bring you closer together or it's going to drive you apart. We were fortunate that it made us stronger as a couple, and because of that and the growth in our relationship with God and the things that we learned going through it, as hard as it was, I'm thankful for it. It's crazy to say that,
Yeah.
but
Because it was bad.
Well, and it sounds like y'all went from maybe a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, which nothing externally changed. Externally. I'm trying to change like for y'all, but the way you viewed it and the way you handled it and approached it and reacted to it made all the difference in the world. And so for a new agent getting into the business, I see that a lot of kind of going, 2 things y'all did that I'm kind of pulling back together is focus on one specific area and really an abundance mindset around, hey, we're just going to be Chelsea, knowing that we're going to be taken care of. God has his hand on what we're doing.
And that was scary for me,
Right.
like she said,
Yeah.
of promoting that,
That's it, yeah.
that I'd sold more in Chelsea than anybody else and all that, because my fear was that my past clients in Hoover and stuff like that would stop calling me because they just perceive that all I do is Chelsea.
Yeah.
We still sell all over the place. But then I woke up one day, I'm like, okay, so if I can just dominate this market in my own backyard and I lose a couple of deals across town, it's worth it.
Yeah.
And so that was.
Well, and is the reality quite the opposite, where you don't really see a loss outside of there, but you just
I mean, I don't, if I've lost anything because of that marketing, I don't know about it.
Yeah.
And so what you don't know
Well,
won't hurt
and the
you, I guess.
marketing
Yeah,
is
yeah.
very focused to Chelsea. We still have our relationships with our clients that
Right.
understand we're just, going to be top professional realtors for you,
Mm-hmm.
they don't ever see any of that. I mean, now
Yeah.
you see it on our social media, but but we still do stuff outside of it.
Right.
But the reality was, we learned if we don't do anything outside of Chelsea ever again, but we just do, top level there financially, it's more than we could ever
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
But I would say that so when we work with new agents in helping them get in the business I think it's extremely important, and we didn't understand this, of finding that specialty of what do you want to focus on, whether it's, you're going
It's
to be.
cliche, but there's some truth to the old saying, the riches are in the niches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we just didn't, literally, I think God made that happen because we were too dumb to intentionally do it. It just
Yeah.
accidentally happened to us.
Yes.
And we're so grateful for it.
I experienced the exact same thing and just had that scarcity mindset of well, if I do that, then someone entrustful will never call me. And I experienced the exact same. I'm, Bluff Park, and that's just what I promote,
Yeah.
which is a tiny community, but
Yeah.
Right.
if
There's a lot
there's
going on
still
there.
hundreds and hundreds of transactions, and if I can just have a fraction of that.
And you nailed it right there. So, I tell new agents this all the time. I mean, that get intimidated by, oh, well, so-and-so's killing it in that market. I'm like, look up their numbers and see what their market share is.
Yeah.
Because we've been top in Chelsea for years and years and years, but any one year, I mean, we're not getting more than 2 or 3% of the deals
Right.
being done in there. That's
Right.
tiny.
Yeah.
So there's so much room to get your piece of it.
Yeah. I agree. There's 10 to 12,000 transactions in Birmingham in our MLS a year,
Right.
and it's like you don't need much,
No,
right?
You can't do.
There's no way.
There's
you
a
can
limit
handle
on
it.
what you're
I mean, you said
capable of.
Just give me
2000
60 or 70 of them.
Right, right. I mean, you said, earlier in this, you said, look, one year I had 89 or
Yeah.
99 transactions. I mean,
Yeah.
that's that's so many.
Yeah.
And that's such a small percentage of
Right.
the market share.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
I love that, just kind of focusing down, whether intentionally or not, or
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
put in that spot. And
Well,
just
and that's
having
when
it
people
grow.
talk about the market changing and all of this and sales being down and there not being as many homes sold. It's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to get my share of them.
Right.
You
I
know,
mean, even if it
I
cuts
don't
in
care what
half.
the market's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care how many homes overall are being sold.
Yeah.
As long as I can get, if I can keep my market share up and I can serve the people that I'm supposed to serve, it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
I try not to get bogged down into, oh, well, the whole market as a whole is doing this and interest rates are that and all that. I mean, it doesn't matter. There are a certain number of people that are going to need to move one way or another. And so my job is just to try to connect with those people.
I love that. I can't control rates. I can't control where the market's going, but I can control what I do on a daily basis
Yeah.
and how I interact with
Yeah.
people and
Right.
my business. So I
Yeah,
love
and when
the
you
idea of that.
think about Bluff Park's your area, and talk about matching that with the quality of life you want to have with your family, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Instead of you running and targeting, doing marketing dollars to Oak Grove and
Yeah.
Columbiana and all the
Or
places.
Chelsea. It's a 45-minute drive. I don't want to be the number one agent there, right?
It's true.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, but I think that is an active thing you can do for your family, is to not try to
Be all things
be
to all people.
things to all people all over the
Yeah.
place.
So did you see that help in your kind of work-life balance of being
It
able
does
to be places?
tremendously.
at
I mean,
school?
of course, like you said, I mean, if I've got, a listing that's an hour drive away or something, and something comes up and I need to run over there, well, that's whatever time it's going to take while I'm there plus 2 hours of drive time,
Yeah.
versus if it's right there in my community and it takes me 10 minutes to get there,
Yeah,
I mean, it just gives you so much of your life back.
Yeah.
it does.
And it's not that we do list, we listed a friend of mine's parents' home in Trustful, and, we've done stuff in Homewood, and we've done stuff in Helena. We still have a lot of great friends in Helena that we help from when we were there for 4 years.
Right.
So it's not that we don't, but it's okay if
Yeah.
our major, at least our marketing dollars and our
Yep.
focus is in right around where we are.
Yeah, don't
Well, and-
discount the
and-
service you're providing. It's just that's where you're marketing. dollars.
Well, and by
Right.
and by concentrating on a small area, whether you start small and you start with a neighborhood, and it grows out of there to the town or whatever, but especially when you're concentrating on the listing side, it's like we said before. I mean, I get people go, "Man, I see your signs everywhere."
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Well, in certain areas, yeah, you probably do. I mean, and look, diligent about getting those under contract and those sold signs up, because a lot of people don't do that. And they're like, yeah, I see sold signs on your signs all the time and nobody else's or whatever. I'm like, it's probably not true, but if that's your perception,
it's all about the perception. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Well, cool. Well, so kind of switching gears a little bit, what are y'all excited about coming up in the next 12 months?
Well, I'm just going to say, so with some of the agents we've been working with and kind of brainstorming with, it is a little slower than we're used to. Well, it's all relative. Like, a lot of our new agents don't know anything except the multiple
crazy
offers,
market.
crazy, sold in 24 hours. I'll
Yeah.
say this, the market's slowing down a little bit of things staying on, might taking 2 weeks to sell.
Yeah.
Is helping, because one thing that hurt us with our advertising is our signs went up and down in 30 days. We need them up for 3 months. That's billboards for free in people's yards.
Yeah.
But we have really, like I said, what are you going to do when it starts slowing down a little bit? Are you going to stick your head in the sand? Are you going to pull the covers over your head and just wait till this is over? And, will it ever even get back to what it was? Crazy. I kind of hope not. A little bit. I'm loving, maybe there's not 50 offers on one house when I've got the buyer.
Right.
But we're just being very intentional with a plan of, we've baby stepped into what do we want to accomplish by the end of the year that will keep us relevant. We are older, and so we could fall into this is the way
Trying not
we've
to get
always done
replaced
it.
by you podcasters.
That's right. We're going to get a podcast.
I will say, y'all look great. I think you can.
You're
We can
holding
throw
up
some.
well.
Listen, we can throw some marketing stuff out there that's like, look, these young 30-year-olds just out there killing it.
That's funny. But yeah, we sat down and wrote out what do we want, how do we want to be different and add some things to what we do to stay, top of mind and still current by the end of the year. Then we broke it down to, okay, what do we want to accomplish by the end of the month? And then we broke it down to what do we want to accomplish this week?
Yeah.
And so at our real estate conference we went to a couple weeks ago, it was all about AI. You want to throw somebody into a tizzy, put a 50-year-old in AI training. I'm like, what is happening? But we're embracing it. And I have used Chat GPT.
Yeah.
I think that's,
You nailed it.
thank you.
You said it right.
I'm trying hard not to say GPS. But,
How are you using it?
we are, two things. So we're going more futuristic with using AI, but we're also going, we've never done old-fashioned back-to-basic newsletter. And so I am working on, we have KV Core as our CRM, and so I'm learning how to build an interactive newsletter in KV Core. And so I'm using ChatGPT to input some data and asking
Yeah,
it to
I love
help me
that.
write a blog post on blah, blah, blah. And then, so I had so much fun. Chad was cracking up. I was in there going, rewrite this as a shorter summary with a fall theme.
I love that.
Rewrite this
That's
with
so
a
good.
with a
What was funny
humorous
is
tone.
when she told it to write it with a more casual
Casual.
tone or something, and it's like, yo,
I was like, whoa, rewrite less casual.
No, not that casual.
So just putting our toe in the water of, okay, maybe this is something that, we've got on our goals we've had it on there for a while of doing some Chelsea neighborhood videos. We're building a YouTube channel. We're just trying to take this time where it is a little bit slower, and instead of panicking and worrying, okay, let's just keep working and put
Well,
some
and
things in place to
that's
grow.
something like we alluded to earlier that, it is slower right now. I think we're all feeling that. I think most everybody is sort of sitting around rate watching. I mean, they're a little paralyzed with rates getting as high as they've gotten as quickly as they've gotten. Historically, they're not that high, but coming from sub 4% as recently as we've been there to where we are now is, a lot of people it's the shock of it. So they're adjusting to it. And at some point that dam's going to break. And so those of us who stay visible and stay out there in front of people, we learned that when the market crashed before. Those of us that stuck around and stayed as visible as possible benefited quickly when everybody jumped back in. Because for whatever reason, the entire home buying public works off the same brain. They're either all sitting still or they're all buying at the same time.
Yes.
And so that's what we're trying to do, is just put some things in place to just keep moving forward and not stagnate, and stay visible, so that, when it does pop again, we're ready to go.
That's why I did 20 takes until I got and figured out how to put up on my story with captions of, talking about we're seeing contingent offers being accepted again. And I was like, you're not moving the car, because it's on your list to do by the end of the week.
Yeah.
So
And that's,
just putting some things in place.
talking about being excited about something. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I feel like right now is such a great opportunity for buyers, that we haven't had this in a while.
They finally have leverage, right?
They have a little bit of leverage. I mean, listen, we had a couple from California, a mother-daughter, that are going to move to the South, and they were looking at some homes here, and showed them several houses, and gosh, the phone's blowing up after that with these listing agents going, hey,
Make an offer.
how can we be the one? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of inventory out there. I mean, inventory's still low, but the ones that are there, I mean, they're just moving slower than they were.
Yeah.
So buyers have an opportunity to actually think about a purchase for a second instead of just jumping. And you might be able to negotiate some sort of concession, maybe a 2-1 buy down, or to help with that rate, and things like that. So there's some opportunities out there that. And I don't think that the window's going to be open on those opportunities for very long, because what I kind of think is going to happen is when rates start going, in a lower direction, I don't know what the number is, but there's a number that will hit that we've been building pent-up demand day after day after day for several months now, and at some point the dam's going to break and everybody's going to jump back in, and it's going to drive prices higher, and we're going to be back to multiple offers again. So
It is a tremendous, and that's the message that we're trying to get out, is if you're even thinking about it, now might be the time where those of you who need to sell your house to buy actually have an opportunity to go find what you want, put the contingent offer on it, and then put your house on the market. We haven't seen that in a couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, if you had a contingent to sell, just don't
we
waste
were
your
like,
time.
exactly,
But now
you
you
know?
actually have that ability.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. Outside of business, what are you excited about personally?
We have a personal.
I mean,
Trips coming up?
We really don't. I mean, we've been on a bunch of trips.
Yeah, we've kind of
here
already
lately,
done that.
So we don't really have anything slated right now. I mean, I'm kind of excited for the holidays and getting everybody back together again.
Yeah.
And got.
Your son's in Nashville. Is your daughter here?
She
is for now.
So she took a seasonal job out in Idaho, Driggs, Idaho.
Oh, wow.
Which is why we ended up at the Tetons,
Okay.
because she was working out there.
That's
all
in the
summer.
Teton Valley, which is just across the pass from Jackson Hole.
Okay.
So we
I haven't
took
been
our
out there.
son and his wife out there and met her, and she had the week off. But she has moved back home, which is everybody prepares you, all the emotions of when they leave the nest. There are no books on when they come back in the nest. But she's only there for 3 months. She has actually decided to go to Auburn, which hurts a little bit.
Love that.
Roll Tide.
A little
War
bit.
Eagle.
But so she is a musician. She's also an incredible artist, and has just been trying to figure out kind of what she wants to do. She loves that out west exploration type life, but she learned real fast at her seasonal job, $20 an hour, when mom and dad aren't giving you any
Doesn't
money.
get far.
Might not be the route.
Definitely doesn't go far out there.
Yeah.
So she is going back to Auburn, or going to Auburn. She had been at North Alabama in January, and going to pursue a marketing degree with hopes of being able to work remotely
And travel.
in some capacity. So
awesome.
excited to see that new season of her life. Our son got married a couple years ago. His wife's also a musician, so
wow.
they do. She's put out several singles over the past 6 months. Katie Hurst.
Yeah. Give us that information.
Definitely look up Katie
we'll put it in
Hurst.
the notes.
She's on Spotify.
I love
She's
that.
on Spotify.
Yeah.
And Apple
So
Music
Parker's
and all the
learning to
things.
produce her music. He's been on the road with Ben Rector on
cool.
his Old Friends tour. That's what he's out on now. So
Okay.
we have a super fun family
Yeah.
that does not fit in a box.
So no interest in real estate from either of them?
Well,
Or some?
no, I don't think so. Not yet. Hallie is going to get her license.
Yeah. We've been after both of them. So, we at EXP, we have this revenue share opportunity, and that revenue share can be, if something happened to both of us, that could be passed on to one of the kids, but they have to have a license.
Okay. Oh,
So we're like,
awesome.
one of y'all got to get a license. If we go down in a plane crash,
Yeah, it's a good insurance policy.
Yeah.
this monthly income's going to go, y'all won't get it. So
Yeah.
you better get a license.
Yeah.
So I think she's going to do that. Plus, there's a great opportunity for her, and I've encouraged Parker to do it also. They know so much because they've been around it their whole lives.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, as their friends enter that home buying age, refer them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if they're not here, I'm like, Parker, you could refer your friends to an agent in Nashville and have pretty good passive income
It's free money.
just from
Yeah.
referrals. So I think Hallie has it's probably been really good for her to be on her own and kind of see the real world and the cost of living and all that. So she's going to tap into that opportunity in addition to going back to school. But yeah.
That's awesome. Any international travel dreams or
We
goals?
never
or-
have. I mean, there's places we'd like to go.
That's next. I mean, we really just started exploring some of our own country.
Yeah.
I do want to do the Rocky Mountaineer in Canada.
I just want to go to the Caribbean.
I know, he does. We've
I've
never.
been trying to get her down there forever.
I was one of those very weird. I wouldn't get on a plane.
Yeah, when the
with
kids
two
were
of us
little,
when they were
she
little.
was scared for both of us to get on a plane
Now
together.
we fly a lot, and so I have a peace about it. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me at all. 280 scares me more than a plane. But back before, I just didn't travel, and so I didn't have an understanding, and I just thought our kids would be orphans. And so if we couldn't drive it, we didn't go. That's
Yeah.
so sad now.
I think that's
fears.
very real. That's
Yeah.
very, yeah.
But yeah, I do. I really would love to go to Europe.
Yeah.
But Chad's never been out of the country, and I've only been to Guatemala on a mission trip.
I did get my passport.
We got our
though,
passports.
So I'm ready.
Well, I'm going to put that challenge to you.
Yes.
Book something.
Yeah.
Where should we go? Where have you been?
Man, we've been blessed to be all over the world.
That's awesome.
The first 5 years of our marriage, we were on the train to probably never have kids, just for probably selfish reasons. We love traveling, and it just wasn't really the
big
life
step.
that we thought we had. So we've been to Greece, Thailand, Spain,
Wow.
Peru,
What's your favorite?
Italy. Thailand's up there. We did Bangkok, which is like a bigger New York City. It's just crazy. Then up to Chiang Mai, which is like where you ride elephants and do all that.
Cool.
And then Phuket is like the beach kind of party
Yeah.
town. So we got to see all three different cultures
I'm
in the
not
same
pretty
place.
enough to go there.
Oh man, it's incredible, and it's so cheap. Like we did 14 days there, and it was through a travel company. It's Gate One. I'll hook y'all up with them. But travel, tour guides, foods, hotels, everything for 2 weeks was like $4,500.
Oh,
for both of
wow.
us. Yeah, flights, everything.
That's the thing. It's
Wow.
crazy how,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, inexpensive stuff like that is.
Oh, go to
I
Orange
mean,
Beach for 2
well,
weeks.
that's what I was
How
going
much
to
is
Oh,
say.
you can't
right?
afford it
Our
anymore.
little Alabama and Florida Panhandle beaches have gotten
Yep.
ridiculous.
Yeah. So I love that. We love just to get into, like, immerse ourselves in the culture and the food. I just love to eat.
Yeah.
And so go in there and you could get
I'd be afraid I'm going to get a hold of something that I wish I didn't have, and then
Well,
it ruins my trip.
Yeah. Well, so it happened in Peru. I went with
It's
my
like,
whole.
what kind of worm was that?
Yeah. Everyone except me. That is my whole mom's side of the family plus some. So there's like 20 something of us.
Oh, wow.
Everyone got a combination. We were by Machu Picchu, so the elevation was really high, and a combination of elevation sickness and food poisoning. Literally everyone but me, and I was just like, okay, here we go. But it
See
never
y'all
hit me.
later.
You're like, all right, I'm going to explore.
Yeah,
Have
I'll see y'all
fun.
later. But no, we just love traveling. Just love being out, seeing different cultures, experiencing it, and kind of get off the beaten path. We did Cuba when it was open for that little bit of time.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
So yes, I'll put that challenge to y'all. You got your passport.
Yep.
Book Europe. We were supposed to do Italy and Costa Rica, and then COVID hit. So that was our 2020, like our 2 trips. COVID hit, obviously canceled those, and so then I joked that there was nothing to do, so we decided to have a kid. But
COVID kid.
Yeah, it was honestly. I think,
There's a lot of those.
yeah, yeah, there are a lot of COVID babies. I think God changed my heart first, and with just being around our friend group, I've
Yeah.
moved.
Sure.
I've moved 18 of our friends on our street in Bluff Park, so everyone's having kids, and
Yeah.
we're home.
Season.
That's awesome.
And we were just like, I was like, I think looking kind of at the investment mindset, I was like, 20 years from now, I don't want to be the
Yeah.
people with no kids. And
Yeah.
we've seen the entire world, and it's just like now we're seeing our
There's
friends
nothing
experience
like
it. Yeah.
I mean, it
So,
was.
We
It
waited
was-
about 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if
We
it had
didn't
been
travel.
left up to me, it would have never happened because
I told him it was
it's always
happening.
that
Yeah,
one
we're
day,
going.
whatever,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but then when she started talking about it, Parker was born. I was 28. And then Hallie came along when I was 30, but I was like, all right, let's get this done. I want him out the house before I'm 50. I don't want to be that old dad,
Yeah.
and I want to still have enough youth left to enjoy my life once
Yeah.
the kids are gone, and not
Yeah.
be like, the last one just graduated high school and I'm going to the retirement home. kind of
Right.
I would
thing.
say this is probably the most fun season of life.
It
right
has
now.
been a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Adult kids. Now you got to get them past 18, 19. Ugh, it's just awful. Those first college years.
Yeah.
But Parker, we love his wife. Their season is so fun, and Hallie's, just really coming into her own and
Yeah.
finding her way. And adult kids rock. I mean, it's really fun. No grandbabies anytime soon, I don't think. But
Yeah.
I'm not.
We're not
We're
those.
good.
We're
Not
not. We're not those people that are pushing for it.
Right,
It's
yeah,
like-
yeah.
So it's just really, it's such a joy to be around them as adults and do trips. And my daughter-in-law is an incredible baker. She makes homemade bread. Like just seeing their own identities and adulthood starting to develop is just the coolest.
Our small group's doing a parenting study book by Andy Stanley in Atlanta. And it talks about different phases of kids or parenting. And the last one is your kids choosing to hang out with you when they don't have to. And like being, and it sounds like y'all are there. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, what are all the things to do for the next 20 years to make sure that we set that up correctly?
Yeah.
And it's awesome to hear that y'all are on the back end of that and experiencing it.
Well, and we were very, I would say from the beginning of, I'll say this. So when Parker, he went to Alabama for a couple of years, and the night before he had to move into his dorm, he had not packed one thing. Not one thing. And he's laying on the bed, and I'm like, Parker, I bought it, got him boxes and whatever, and I was like, you have got to pack. We're leaving in the morning to move you to Tuscaloosa. He went, I'm just going to throw some things in a bag. I was like, okay, whoa. I don't think you understand. You're gone. You're 18, dude. You're moving. You will pack a bag to come here.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Bye. So we've
Your
always
base camp
been-
is there
For
now.
Hallie to be home for these 3 months, which is fine. That was just we were never please stay.
Yeah.
We're like, we got you. We are going to teach you all you need to know, and we're going to support you. But at 18,
Fly, little bird.
Yeah.
Let's go.
The nest is closed.
but yeah, I mean, I just think that's so cool, and you're in the best season of life. You want me to give you good real estate advice?
Please.
It's about to explode.
Oh, yeah.
Like you are.
Kids are good for business.
Oh my
Yeah.
word! Like
I sold so many houses out of the ballpark and the tennis courts and the, dance world.
it's just like
and-
next level relationships and
You're,
opportunities.
you're
to
forced
be in
into
the flow.
relationships with people that you wouldn't know
Yeah.
otherwise, and you're spending a lot of time with
You should
them.
do life with them, right?
I mean, I used to drive around my little black Jeep that I had with my magnets on the door at the ballpark, and I can remember, one family in particular was like, hey, we just saw your Jeep in the parking lot. We didn't know you were a realtor. We're about to move to Georgia. You want to come list our house? I was like,
Yeah.
yes, I do.
It's a great.
And if you don't have
season.
kids, you can't do that. You can't hang out at the ballpark.
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of
No, that's
weird to just
creepy.
lurk around at the ballpark. Yeah.
It's creepy, but yeah, schools, you're going to get in the flow of that.
Yep.
You're just going to have so many opportunities to serve and give.
Right.
And that's how you build the relationships in your business.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, your business flows out of those relationships and those tribes, that you've formed, whether it's, school groups or, you play golf or tennis or whatever, those people that you're around that get to know you, and your business sort of grows out of those, and that the stuff your kids get involved in is just another avenue for those relationships, because this business is, I tell people all the time, we are not in the house business, we are in the people business. This is a relationship business first, and you build those relationships when you're around those people all the time.
Yeah, very true, very true. So we ran into each other about a month ago, at an event, and the event was focused around the investing side of our business, and y'all expressed some interest about learning more, getting into it. Talk to me a little bit about what that entails and what your interest is.
To this point, we really haven't, gone into that, and really a lot of it is just about time. I mean, we've just been so busy in, building our real estate business, and then 4 years ago moving to EXP, and, we have been fortunate to build an organization of agents that have partnered with us, and, between people that have come with us directly and then others that we've brought in, we've got over 90 agents that are part of our organization at EXP. And so we're intentional about supporting and encouraging and providing learning opportunities and things for them. So it just, it just hasn't been top of mind to jump into the investment world because we've had so much other stuff going on, but it is something that's kind of in the back of my head when the right opportunities come along to kind of, start going that way.
And that's
with
why I
it.
like just having an opportunity to hear from y'all on that panel, and so I just see no fear, and maybe that's true or not true. I don't know, but just taking a risk, which would be for us a calculated risk. I do think that's in our future, which is why I loved sitting and listening and being at that, listening to it. Everybody was different, and how they did it.
Yeah.
I think that's my thing. If you look at the flipping side of it, in my head, I'm like, okay, that just creates another job for me.
Yep.
And I don't need that. So I think that probably unless it was an opportunity of something that just needed very little that we could make a little money off of or something, I look at it more of, okay, when we're ready, we need to, start buying a couple of rental properties that bring in some income and give us some tax breaks and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. It was interesting on that panel, just the diversity of, from, I've got a couple rentals to like Mike going up there, and it's like, I'm building 900.
Another level.
I'm building 800 homes this year. It's like, holy cow.
All
like
for
that's-
rent.
See, I really keyed in on the girl that did girl math. Like, I could probably,
Kristen.
I could probably get in on that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned risk, because early on, definitely way before kids and before I was really had any type of success in anything, Rachel, my wife, who is amazing, is a physical therapist. And so we kind of set up to where, and again, I realize this was a crush that a lot of people don't have the opportunity to have, but it was, hey, we're going to live off of you, and I'm just going to go try some stuff.
My wife was a teacher. It didn't work really well.
We cannot live off of me.
So again, like having that, it was amazing. But I knew at the end of the day, kind of from a work ethic standpoint, how we started this conversation, if I crash and burn and lose everything, which was very, very little in the beginning, I can go get a job somewhere, and I can swing a hammer. I can do something that's going to provide to where, like, what do we have to lose? Like, and that's how I kind of looked at it. What's worst case? Now, it's changed a little bit, throwing a kid into the mix, and the second one on the way of now there's a little bit more to lose, right? So the risk.
It's a little bit of pressure of, I have these other lives I'm responsible for.
But early on, the risk was so low, and I was willing to just, you know what? If it all crashes and burns, we're going to be okay.
Well, I mean, and I can identify that because when I got into the real estate business, at 26 years old, going from a salary job to jumping into this, with both feet, my mindset was that, okay, at that point we didn't have kids yet. And I told myself, I'm like, if I'm ever going to try something like this, now is the time to do it when we don't require quite as much and I don't have as many mouths to feed and all that sort of thing. And, this is going to date me, but this is just where prices were at the time. When I first got into it, I'm like, okay, if I can sell one $100,000 house a month, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I guess it worked out all right.
Yeah, that's good.
There were stretches in there where it's like, oh God, what have I done? But
But I think so. I mean, so you've got us up here going, how did y'all build this business? And you're doing it at this level. I look at what you're doing, and I just think that's the coolest thing.
I think you're just building it in a very smart way.
Yeah, and I'm going to say we didn't have that mindset of anything beyond just our job.
Well, and part of it is
we think bigger.
We didn't grow up with parents or anybody around us that knew about anything like that to even teach us how to use money. I mean, we had to just learn from the school of hard knocks. And
we went to that school a long time.
we did. I mean,
We're still kind of there.
Yeah, I think we always are. But yeah, so kind of furthering that investment path for me, trying to take the same thing of what's worst case for everything I look at. And that's kind of the reason, as I think about it, of building the kind of quote passive income through rentals is worst case is I always have that to fall back on.
No,
So
yeah.
like if I'm going to go, like I'm analyzing a pretty big deal right now that like I can't afford it, like, but through, different ways, like if it crashes and burns, we're okay over here. Like that's taken care of, kids are taken care of. And so being able to just have that safety, if you will, was kind of the idea behind setting that up.
Well, when we decide to put the toe in the water, you'll be our first call.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's,
I don't swing a hammer though.
I think that's, I learned a lot doing it. That is
Right.
not the best way to do it. Because then, I mean, it took me, my chair just broke again. We'll just roll with it. It took me years, like 5 or 6 years, to get out of the mindset of I can do it myself. So
Right.
why would I pay somebody?
Right.
And
Yeah.
just having zero value of my own time.
Yeah.
And then flipping that of like, holy cow, I wasted. I learned a lot, but like, how much further could I have been if I just known, like year one, someone said, quit hanging drywall.
Yeah. Yeah. But I can see that mentality of if I do it myself, then I'm saving that money.
Right. And I
but
know
you
it's going to
just
be done
don't-
right. And
You don't think about the time.
That's what I just didn't value, and I think that's kind of comes from growing up and how like my parents are great. My dad's an engineer, and he now works with me on the investment side of it. But it was more of a 9-to-5 mindset where I think it's not the entrepreneurial mindset of time valuation, right?
Right.
It's just you show up, you get paid, and you leave.
yeah.
Where this business is complete opposite of that.
Well, and
Like,
that's
time
the hard thing that we all have
Yeah.
to kind of learn to some extent is it's hard to grow and scale if you're doing everything yourself.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
You
Yeah, I
know,
definitely hit a
I
ceiling.
would go beyond hard and say impossible. So you have to identify those things that are things that somebody else can do competently for a reasonable price that's not costing you the price that you're paying to do it yourself. So
Yeah, very much so. Well, guys, I've loved our conversation. This is, I think we're hitting records of time, which I love. Like, I could sit here and talk to y'all
talk too
for
much.
hours because I just learned so much from y'all. I've loved the way you've set your business up, how you manage not just your business, but your family and your life and your charity, your faith. It's just, it's inspiring. So thank you for being here. Where can people find out more about you?
we're pretty easy to get. My number is 205-401-2423. That's 401-CHAT if you forget the last four.
I love it.
That was back in the, we
Was that
had it
intentionally?
so long,
Yeah,
you
that's
used
so
to
good.
could pick your number. We're old.
Yep, or you can find us at chatandjenbeasly.com.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Any social
and-
medias?
Chad and Jen Beasly.exp Realty on Instagram.
Okay.
And then we've got a new YouTube channel. It's at Chad and Jen Beasly
Awesome.
on
Okay.
YouTube. So
We can tag it all.
Awesome.
All right, before we wrap up, I did want to get your opinion. Something that's a very hot topic in our industry right now is lawsuits with the National Association of Realtors over commissions, and I feel like that's been a talk forever, but it's kind of come to a head. It feels like.
yeah,
What, do you have
the
any
trial
opinions?
has actually started now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, listen, it's absolutely something we all need to be aware of and watching.
Give our people a quick breakdown of actually what it is. if you don't mind.
So the lawsuits are over so historically, the National Association of Realtors has required any member organizations through their MLSs that if a property is listed in MLS, there has to be compensation offered to a buyer's agent from the seller. Now, the funny thing is for the longest time, they didn't even really have a minimum in there. So, I mean, you could put $1.
Right.
But now, all of a sudden, it's just this big thing, and a lot of companies have come out and said, and I think NAR maybe, I can't even remember if they've already changed the requirement. You can put zero. Most MLSs are now allowing you to put 0 in there for buyer agent compensation. So anyway, there's these two big class action lawsuits that are going on right now, and there's a lot of different opinions flying around out there. I think right now there's some people that are getting a little more worked up about it than is necessary. I think at the end of the day, unless something comes out where they just prohibit offering a buyer agent commission paid by the seller, which I think would be very odd if that happens. I've heard scenarios of that could happen, but that would be one thing.
That would be extreme.
Outside of that, if people just have the option, well, for years they've had the option of just offering $1 or something.
Yeah.
So I just don't think it's going to change a lot, because I think most sellers are going to understand that it's going to make it more difficult for me to sell my house if I'm not offering a compensation to a buyer's agent. And so I think most people will understand that and continue doing the way they've done it. I think as agents, we've got to get a lot better at explaining buyer agency and what we charge as a buyer's agent, and making sure that people are aware of the fact that, okay, in most cases, traditionally, there is compensation offered by the seller. If it is at least, what I'm charging on my buyer agent agreement, we're cool, and you don't owe me anything because it's being paid through the transaction in the price of the house and all of that sort of thing. But on the outside chance that we run across one that's not paying a commission, or they're paying less than, then that I can't work for free, and that that gap is going to have to get bridged by you, the buyer.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know, if you would like for me to. If there's ones that are not offering a commission, you can decide if you want to look at that house or not under those, circumstances. So I think we've just all got to get better at educating the home buying public about that, and, knowing what our worth is and what we're going to charge as a buyer's agent, and communicating that. And outside of that, I'll be surprised if things change a lot,
Well, I think
unless they prohibit sellers from paying a buyer agent commission at all.
Right.
Then we got a little bit of a
Then
problem.
it's pickle.
Which would be extreme.
It would
That
be
would be
extreme, and I
extreme,
don't think it'll go that way. And then I think,
And that, in my mind, that hurts the consumer.
right,
Right, yeah.
Where are these buyers that can barely scrape their down payment together going to come up with money to pay their buyer's agent?
Right.
And then that's just going to drive them straight to the listing agent, and they have no representation.
yeah. And I think that the free market will
Yeah.
work that out. And I think as listing agents, we have to do a better job of also explaining. So we do, for our listing appointments, we have packages that they can choose from, so that we don't just say, well, this is what we charge. We give them a choice. At this commission, it's this, and at this, you get a little bit, all of that and a little more, and so on and so on. So we've actually talked about taking our listing packages and changing it to only showing what we charge as the listing agent, and then explaining to our clients that, to be competitive in this market, we suggest that you also offer, which has been customary in the past, we also suggest you offer, potentially this percentage to an agent that might bring a client, because it will get you more competition, it'll get you more exposure. And typically a buyer has they're already having to come up with a down payment, closing cost, and then when you throw that into order to buy your house, they're also going to have to pay their agent's
Several
commissions.
$1,000s in commission.
It's just it's where we've gotten to, or where we used to be. If buyers needed help covering closing cost or whatever, it's all about helping your house be more marketable. And so I think we're probably going to transition to, instead of our packages showing just what we would
The
split,
total.
the total, we're going to show what we charge.
Yep.
And then explain
And then
what the
talk
other
separately
is.
about,
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that, if that becomes a common conversation with your buyer, like, hey, you sent me 10 houses to look at. Okay, what are the commissions on? Right, and that just
Yeah.
is something added into it. And also price point wise. So if a buyer's expected to cover, like if your seller says, no, I'm not going to pay, I'm only paying half of it. At what price point? Like under $250, like cash is tight, generally speaking, for a lot of those buyers. And so coming up with an extra $6,000-$7,000 for commissions is just, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll
So
say this, if it was ever going to come up, now is a great time for the transition to be made for something like this, because homeowners have more equity in their homes than they've ever had before. And so this transition is not as painful, and it's not as making that transition of explaining to listing clients that you need to offer this, it's not as painful. If this conversation had come up in 2010,
when everybody was upside down
Yeah.
and writing
and that
checks to get
option
out
would
of
have
their
been there
houses.
if we're not paying that side of it, it would be a different story. But right now, I think if it's going to happen and we're going to all it's doing is forcing us to clarify what has always been in place.
Yep. Just
And
making
being
us
better at our job
Yeah.
and more professional.
Making us better agents. Yeah.
And I
that's
think,
great.
yeah, I've heard a couple people talk about, well, you can just, if a seller's not offering buyer agent commission and you're working with a buyer, you can just write a commission rate into the contract and negotiate it that way. Well,
Everything's negotiable, right?
but under our current, through NAR, the Code of Ethics, you are not allowed to negotiate commission in an offer to purchase. That's a separate thing where the listing agent has listed it and is offering compensation to the buyer's agent, and it really has nothing to do with the offer and the contract between the buyer and seller. So under our current way we're operating, if you're a member of National Association of Realtors, you can't do that under the Code of Ethics. So as things change, it'll be interesting to see, do they change that? And then what happens when, now that, some of the bigger companies that were part of this lawsuit have come out and said that they're making membership with National Association of Realtors optional. So as people stop being members of the National Association of Realtors and they're no longer under that, then you got some people are operating one way and some that are operating another way. So that'll be another thing that we have to kind of work through.
It'll be interesting. And talking with a seller, a lot of my conversation is it's not necessarily how we get to your net, it's what your net is, right? But because for a seller, it's somewhat indifferent, but to a buyer, it's a
Everything.
huge difference.
That's
so,
right.
yeah, it's interesting to see. Well, cool. Well, guys, thank you again. It's been great getting to know y'all.
Thanks
a
for
little bit
having
better.
us. This was fun.
Yeah, looking forward to doing some deals together in the
Let's
future.
do it.
Nice. Until next time, thank you.
All right, thanks.